What's up to the point, listeners? It's your boy Chris. I want to give a little LOVE to a sponsor coming into Rhino X, a big sponsor, Nuvi, the smartest thermostat in the game. They came in a big way as our day session sponsor, as well as sponsoring the concert to close out Rhino X with my man, Nelly. This is the first thermostat made by contractors for contractors. The only thermostat that connects straight to the CRM. This thing will even dispatch the technician from the thermostat. How badass is that? So thank you to my friends at Nuvi for coming in a big way. I'm excited to hear more about it. Now enjoy this episode with my man, Mr. Keith Mecurio. Hey, to the point, listeners, welcome back to part 2 with my man, Keith Mecurio, on being a really good listener. Don't forget again to go and watch the YouTube version of this. It's so good because part of this is body language. So you'll get to see some of those references between Keith and myself on the YouTube channel. So please go check it out. Now enjoy part 2 with my man, Keith Mecurio.
Yeah. All right. So I love this. And you just triggered something that I had wanted to share earlier is I think the first, if we could just ask people to kind of go back and understand what is listening. Like listening is actually an active conversation we're having with ourselves about what someone else is saying. So the words don't just go out of your mouth and land in my, through my ear holes into my brain in the exact form that they exited. What happens is I'm going through an internal conversation with my second voice that lives up here and never stops talking. That's interpreting, trying to understand, judging, asking questions, passing, whatever. And I'm having an internal conversation with myself about what you just said, to interpret what you just said. And so all listening is still a conversation. It's an internal conversation with ourselves about what we just heard.
Interesting. It sounds like so much. Like you almost when you listen intently, it could also make your head start to spin because you're now thinking about all these different things. There's got to be a way to simplify this, right? There has to be a way to simplify this thing. And I wonder, maybe simplify is the wrong word, but I wonder if my next point aligns with that. And that is the empathetic piece of it. And that is genuinely wanting to understand. So you're doing the paraphrasing, you're asking for clarification. But if you genuinely care about what's, about either the person, what they're saying to you or what they're saying to you, then your body language will be as such, your facial expressions will be as such, and you can hopefully get to a better spot to understand what they're saying and give a thoughtful, response. So, but if you mean it, if you show like empathy or maybe empathy is not the right word, but the intention is that you mean it, then hopefully those things start to follow. So just listening like you actually really care, like you really care and you really want to understand so you can really provide some value in a response if you have one to give. But I don't know.
Let me ask you an honest question right now. Did my physiology just knock you off of your foundation on that point as you were making it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And my bad, because I started looking away and thinking about whether I agree with this. And then you started softening your take and you were like, I don't know, maybe not, could be if you really care. And then I noticed it and I was like, oh, God damn it, Keith, you just made Chris insecure about his point. And now he's right. It's true, isn't it?
Here's what happened. I did waver back and forth, but what I did was I landed with what is true to me. And that is like, I am an empathetic guy. Like I definitely care. I want to get to the end result and I'm willing to eat shit to get there, to get to the end result of me. This is the biggest battle I have had in my entire life is looking in the mirror and trying to make sure like, no. Don't go down this road. You're on this road. Stay on your road. Like you got your guardrails in place. Stay on your road. But
good. Well, good for you for fighting through that. My apologies for making you have to even question it.
Son of a bitch.
Like, yes, I think so. The reason you watched me kind of, explore that is like, again, I think like being empathetic is great. I just don't know that you can it's really hard to summon empathy without tools. Like, again, that's kind of an end state. Like, empathy is an end state. It's not just a resting state. Like, you have to work to get there, or it has to be naturally evoked in you.
But to be fair,
So-
hold on, let me stop you. But to be fair,
Yeah.
we're all in different phases of that, right? Like, so where I'm giving it to you is from my perspective of the things I've done, and empathy is something I've focused on for a long time, is trying to remember that I'm, like I told you, I've got ADHD and I'm trying to solve the problem, right? So the ADHD is my problem because I can go off on tangents, but I'm trying to solve the problem because it comes from a place of like, I want to solve problems. Like, I am that guy. Like I said, makes Anna frustrated because she just wants me to listen to her and not solve her problem. Well, I'm not wired that way, so I have to work through those things. But I'm telling you, this is just from my perspective. Obviously, everybody's different in wherever they're at with the training they've had or how they understand it, what they understand empathy to be, any of those things. So all I'm doing is giving it from my perspective. So I want your 2 cents because I don't expect that everybody listening is like me and you. Like, they're in their own process. They have their own, autopilot. They have their own, ways that they maybe show empathy. So I'm just giving it from my perspective.
Yeah, well, and that's, I mean, for what it's worth, that's all anyone can ever offer is their own perspective, right?
Yeah.
I think even no matter how hard we try to look at, and that's, I think, the challenge, why I say, like, it's, yeah, I agree with it. I just don't know if when I put my teacher, instructor, facilitator hat on, like, if I tell people to be more empathetic, do they know what to do with that, how to get there? Versus, like, so this is what evokes for me, sort of the intent, like, what's my intent? Because if I'm genuinely wanting to explore their experience, that's empathy. So I think it is. I think it's good advice as long as people know how to get there. And then, but then I think the other tool that really just kind of cracks this for me a little bit is, from the perspective of not making up your mind early, like, Jack Needham taught me to listen for the last 3 words. And this was a very profound concept in its simplicity. And, the premise is like, listen for the last 3 words. And somebody would, always inevitably, or I originally was like, but how do you know when the last 3 words are? And he was like, yeah, that's the point. And what became amazing was just like the willingness to take that half a second pause to just not feel like you have to respond, not feel like you have to fill every momentary gap of speaking. And what I started discovering was people then would continue and they'd keep talking. And then they'd share a whole bunch more stuff that I was about to cut them off with. And some of the ways that I cut people off are physiologically, because I start to, like, open my mouth or actually lean in to respond. And some of the ways I cut people off are just, like, literally, I'll interrupt while they're in conversation. So there's silent interruption, there's vocal interruption, there's all types of ways. Then some of the ways I interrupt people is I just stop listening because I hold on to my point and I go, I don't want to forget this. And as a result, they still have a whole bunch of stuff to say, but then I start my point back at the thing that I stopped listening at. And so then they have the experience of not having been heard because they weren't. And so Jack Needham taught us, listen to the last 3 words. And you never know when those are going to arrive.
See what I did there?
Was that a 3 count? People, I'm sure the Yano listeners just checked to see if their feed had been interrupted. They've never heard that much silence on their show in their lives.
God, I love it, dude. Oh man, I was listening for the last 3 words. That's an interesting concept, but then you got me thinking about, when's the last 3 words coming? When's the last 3 words coming? So I can pause. Now, I was doing that on purpose, so cut me some slack. But now I understand. The point is, if you're listening to the last 3 words and you've listened to the entire the conversation or whatever it is in its entirety, and now you can kind of go back and think through how to give a response.
And it's a really nice tool because, look, we already acknowledge that all listening is an internal conversation. And we're already interrupting with a million different ideas anyway. So if we can just utilize the tool of, like, people will say, how do I become a better listener? How do I become a better listener? Listen for the last 3 words is like the one piece of advice that I would tend to give people from my time with Jack Needham. And in doing so, so be it. So that maybe you find yourself going, oh, I stopped listening. What do I do? And then you go, oh, wait, listen for the last 3 words. That's a pretty good little interruption to have there to keep you in the listening. So it's a pretty effective tool. And like you said, this can all be almost paralyzing if you're trying to think of too many things. So just think of one, listen for the last 3 words, or create a trigger for yourself that just reminds yourself, be curious.
That's good.
Right? Or be empathetic, whatever you want, like go back to your state and just have a trigger when you find yourself drifting to bring you back and anchor you. That's a beautiful thing. So pick your catchphrase.
That's good.
Last 3 words, be empathetic, be curious, be present, whatever, and use it.
Who is the guy that you're mentioning an author of a book you read or something like that?
He is an author, actually.
What's his name
he
again?
was
Say it again.
Jack Needham.
Jack Needham.
Jack Eugene Needham. Follow him on Facebook. He's a wonderful man. He was actually the I believe his official title was like Dream Maker or something. It was I think it was like Dream Maker, something like that. And he worked for Williams Comfort Air for years. And they were, of course, Joe Huck and the Huck boys, like
they were a customer
enough to.
I know Joe and Jacob people. And all the guys. Oh, I was a part of that whole deal for a long time.
Amazing people. Yeah, that's awesome. That's not surprising that you all connected. And the Hucks, like, they really got it that they needed to invest in their people. And that's a trite phrase, but they genuinely invested in their people. They literally hired a man who was there to support the dreams, the individual and personal growth of their people. And Jack was the one that shared that with me. And he is an author. And shame on me for forgetting the title of his book. I read it years ago, but he is an author, and he's a wonderful man and a deeply spiritual man. And he taught me a lot in my time getting to work with him.
Fun fact: Joe Huck was very influential in my journey, because he taught me a lot early on, because it was Williams Comfort Air, Mr. Plummer, that they're based out of Indianapolis, Indiana. He, in his Tommy Bahama shirt, would teach me in a very polite but stern Joe Huck way of how to pull in service business and install business and drain cleaning business that worked for an HVAC and plumbing company. He taught me early on a lot about how to go about doing those things, the verbiage, how to solve the problem that the customers, like what the customers are actually thinking before they're called. He taught me so much early on. I'm talking like 2009, 2010. And certainly was influential in my early relationship with Carrier Corporation that kind of pulled us into into the HVAC world. So I have a lot of respect for Joe and that family, and he and I have done a lot of business together early on in this whole thing. And so I have some love for Joe Huck there.
Well, if I may, I'll share my first experience with Joe Huck, because similarly, he was massively influential in my career. And I was 27 years old, and I got to go out and visit him. I was just I don't know, I was like the trainer. I think it was maybe the sales manager at Winters at the time out in Boston. And so we go out, we get the invitation to go out and meet with this, at the time, $25 million a year company, which was, just an absolute, like, unheard of number at the time. This is 13, 14 years ago, right? And I'm sitting at the table with Joe Huck, and at dinner, and he'll tell this story. It's even worse when he tells it. It's even more painful, but I'll share it. And here I am, like this absolute nothing of a nobody, of no consequence in the industry, but obviously thinking that I'm smart enough to do this. And I was like, what's up with the fucking Tommy Bahama shirts?
And
I gave him shit about his Hawaiian shirt, dude, because at that point it had been drilled into me that you're supposed to dress the part, dress the part, dress the part, dress the part. And I'm like, what kind of a message are you sending to people? And I'm asking Joe Huck at dinner, like, what's up with the Hawaiian shirt? And he just looked at, he was like, and God bless him, he's such a sweet man. He didn't just absolutely squash me and leave me the puddle that I probably should have been, but he instead invited me in closer and just absolutely continued to mentor me throughout my career, which is such a nice reminder, of somebody with genuine kind intent, instead of being challenged on his ego or being like, dude, take a look at what I've built versus what you've done. All the things he would have been in the right to say, he instead laughed at it and just played with me and allowed me to continue to be, coached by him throughout my career. Joe Huck is a great guy and has done things in this industry that nobody had done before and no one will do since.
Yeah. I mean, it was, he was, well, I'm glad we're showing him a little bit of love because I can't think the last time I've done it, but he for sure put me in a lot of very humbling moments that have created this reputable company that I run today for HVAC and plumbing companies. Like he certainly helped me understand how to be the best at it from his perspective and how to help myself get better, to be a better partner for the contractor so early on, and was really great at challenging me like on the regular to be better. And so like I learned a lot of valuable lessons from him, and not just about the industry, but just about being a professional and understanding how to work through things. Because when I came into this business, I didn't really know how to run a business. I knew how to run digital marketing campaigns, and I was in sales, and thankfully and knew the other half of that, the operations, the finance, all the other things that I'm not good at, but I learned some valuable lessons there. And when I think back to it is because I came in with all the confidence in the world to meet with them because I knew I was really good at digital marketing. He set the tone real fast for, you're going to need to listen to me. And I did. I had to legit just be vulnerable and listen because I didn't know what he was talking about. I didn't know what a heat pump meant. I didn't know what just some of the specifics. He started to teach me what I needed to know that the contractors actually cared about from his perspective. And that was that was a big deal for me. And I've carried that with me ever since. And I feel like all I've done is taken those things and just perfected it year after year, month after month after day. That's the world I'm in. And here I am.
And what a testament to him, the success that you've had,
Yeah.
right? Like that's a really beautiful thing. And I'm really glad we got to take a minute to acknowledge him. And I think it's a nice reminder. And here's like the one, one of the things that occurred to me while I was listening to you there was that we have to be really careful to not think that we know that much more. All right, so we now know a lot of what we didn't know then, but we have to, I think it's really important, I'll at least speak for myself, I have to continue to remember that regardless of knowing a lot more than I knew then, there's still, an infinite amount of what I don't know. And like, I should be no more, I should bring no more bravado than I would have brought back then, and should be bringing even more curiosity now, learning both from veterans, who are light years ahead of me, and young people who are coming along and have something to offer too. Like it's, I'm about to go do a leadership training at GE Aviation. I just got off the prep call before this. And the audience is made up of like 22 to 24-year-olds that just graduated. It's their whole leadership development program that they bring me in to do the capstone day on. And it's like, oh my God, when did, like Jack Tester warned me of this, but someday I'll be the old guy in the room. Like I'm the old guy in the room now with at least this group. And, making sure that I go in there with the same damn humility that I should have brought when I was 27 and sitting with Joe Huck, and not judging them for whatever potential bravado they may bring, because God bless him, he didn't do that to me.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, you're so right. Yeah, I mean, because why should you? Like, there's so much. I think you're just talking about awareness. It seems like when I start to think about, I make some of these mistakes when I'm talking to someone who's younger than. Actually, it goes a little bit deeper than I just had this conversation, so I'll use a real life example. My oldest daughter's 22. She's a 5th year senior at Northern Arizona University. 5th year. Just in case you guys missed that, that's one more than normal, I think. Unless you're Van Wilder. If you don't know who Van Wilder is, Google it. That was me in college. But I was having this conversation with a smaller contractor, sub 3 million. Um, the kid leading it, I say kid, maybe he's not a kid, is 22, same age. My conversation with him and the way I'm thinking about him and the way he's like holding himself versus the way I think about how like my daughter's still a fifth year senior in school, just finally figuring things out. Like I think about them different. Like I'm like, oh my God, this guy has his shit together. Like he is a smart, sharp kid. And he got my focus but I went into it thinking like he's 22. Like they're small, like this isn't the right fit for us. Like this, I went in with the preconceived notion, but I only did it because another company I respect very much up there, Ross Albert, Arctic Air, had made the connection to me, and I did that because I thought, if nothing else, I'll give him some good advice and we'll move on. So I went into that conversation kind of already with the wrong idea of like what it could be. I think we kind of get mixed up sometimes on, you know, or maybe it's just being open to like maybe just because they're young doesn't mean that they don't understand or get it, and maybe they don't have the tools, but they have the same ambition and the same want to be something. So anyhow, I guess it's just a perspective that we bring in with this regardless of age.
Well, it's beautiful, and this actually miraculously dovetails perfectly to the final point about, okay, so why is this called influential listening? Like, where does that term come from? And the premise is that the final point of how to listen influentially is to listen with the courage to risk being influenced by the speaker. So typically when we enter into these conversations, we've got our mind made up and we don't have the courage to explore the possibility that we were wrong, or we didn't have all the information, or that we might change our mind. And so the reason it's called influential listening isn't about your ability to influence others, but it's actually about your willingness to give influential power to the speaker and to have the courage to let them change your mind. And to be willing to say, you know what, I wasn't completely there, or I didn't have all the information, or this really does. And think about the incredible gift, and think about how beautiful it is. You've done this for me many times. And it's an honor every time when you say something like, wow, you know what? I never thought of that. Man, that's a really great point. Like, I'm going to do this differently now. When somebody actually listens to us and changes their mind and expresses that it's changed their mind, again, genuinely, it's one of the most incredible gifts we can give to another person, or we in this context, it's one of the most incredible gifts we can receive is somebody doing that. And it's one of the most incredible gifts we can give as a listener, is to say, what you just said changed my way of thinking. What you just said helped me see that I was wrong about something. That is such an absolutely gorgeous way to go through life as a human being, but it takes a ton of courage because our ego is so attached to already knowing. And, Chris, the only thing I want to just invite you into in this conversation is, as you look at how you're exploring, where your daughter is at. And this isn't like, I want to be really clear. Other than being a kid, I have no space to be offering parenting advice, right? This is human to human advice, though, that all somebody gets to be is as you see them. And so if you want your daughter to be, to like play a big game and have it all together, like, you need to see her as such. Right. And you gave this kid a chance to be big, and he showed up big. And, that we have to remember to continue to do that, because if you're seeing people in your business as small, then don't expect them to play big. If you're seeing them as broken or not having it together, don't expect them to suddenly show up with it together. Like, you have to see them for all their possibility and give them the chance to live into their possibility. If you want big things from people, you have to see them as big. And so, I share that, just whether it be her or just for all of the people that are listening to this, presumably with the courage to listen from a place of wanting to learn something they didn't know before, or think differently than they used to think. Like that, how you choose to see somebody is all that they get to be to us. And that's going to determine how you listen to them. And so listen to them courageously and give them a chance to be everything that you are hoping that they can be and want to see them as.
Dude, that was super thoughtful. That was very profound. Um, and it makes so much sense. Like, it kind of sucks to feel a little bit of guilt from that, of not being able to like think that way about someone, because I think a lot of times I this happens to me more with, I think, and not even the age of the person. Sometimes it's just the person. And sometimes I am like, I don't know if I don't know if she's gonna work, or if I'm talking to a potential customer, I'm like, I don't know that they're really like the right fit for us, because I don't think I I, I think I prejudge too much, and I don't open myself up to, like, I guess, being more curious and listening and understanding and seeing like full potential. So I'm immediately kind of blocked off, maybe more than I think. You know,
Oh, I bet. If you're human, you know, if you're human, like that's natural. So can I just one more thought on this, because you used an important word, and I think there's a beautiful distinction to be made here, and it's something that I coach really, really consistently on, because you said I kind of feel guilty, all right, and so there's in the course of my therapy, my ongoing therapy, which has been my greatest coaching gift of the last few years. One of my therapists, she used to ask me to explore the difference between clean pain and dirty pain. This is what she called it: clean pain and dirty pain. Dirty pain was guilt and shame. And dirty pain is like the type of pain that you feel in your gut. It like leaves you in a state of uh, exploring a past that can't be changed. And that's why it feels dirty, and it kind of sits in your gut. And she would ask me to learn to move that into clean pain, and to move it from my gut into my heart. And in your heart, it becomes regret and remorse. And regret and remorse give you the opportunity to learn from those mistakes and alter the course for the future. And when you feel them in your heart, they come from a place of love. When you feel them in your gut, they come from a place of wrong and ego and all the things that have been, that can't be undone. When you turn them into regret and remorse, you can acknowledge them, you can feel them, still feel them, but choose to do something differently in the future because of them. And so in the same vein, I would encourage, like, instead of guilt about what you've done, regret about what's been done, so that you can turn it into something beautiful that turns into a gift as you move forward, rather than something of the past that can't be undone.
yeah, that's great. Otherwise, it's a waste of opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, one, this has been phenomenal. I always feel like I'm going through a therapy session whenever I go through these with you, in a good way. I mean that in a very positive way. See, I'm smiling when I said that. But again, this is why, like I said, I always love our conversations, because you really challenge me to think. You really challenge me to think and be more self-aware about different aspects of whatever it is that we're talking about. In this case, listening. So thank you for giving me that. I'm grateful. I mean, gosh, we've been at it for like hour and 20 minutes or something along those lines. But that's what I love about conversations with you, is it's been that long, and I don't even think twice about it, because I'm genuinely interested in our dialogue, and and our listeners get to have the byproduct of that, right? And it's almost like this is what this is about. Like, I believe that I constantly have to be learning, not just business, but me, Chris, and how to be a better human being, how to be a better leader, how to be, just better in general. And I genuinely want to be all those things. And what I love about our conversations, Keith, is you always challenge me in that way. So thank you. Will you do this for me? Because we're kind of down this path. Will you just do from your points, just do a quick recap on those points. Forget mine. Give the quick recap on it, and then we'll go ahead and we'll close out.
Yeah, thank you. And so this is a great. All right, so thanks for showing up the same way that Cynic did. Okay, and in that, the willingness to go with the conversation that was present rather than the one that was maybe intended. All right, and to the listeners, thanks for hanging with us as we navigated that, because it was very real and happening live. But dude, this is the thing, Chris. You make it possible to challenge you. Because if the very first time that I challenged you on the show, you shut down or got defensive or decided that, like, your ego, like, hey, this is my show, these are my listeners, like, dude, there's a lot on the line for you to put yourself out there and allow me to even, challenge or guide or coach throughout the show. And I know that you're willing to do that. That's unbelievable fucking vulnerability. That, like, that, bro, that's your best self in my view. Like, when I see you show up like that, that's when I love you well, no, I shouldn't say it that way. I love you the most all the time, but that's when I, like, adore you the most, is when you're just willing to, like, let it all down and be vulnerable on your own show with your own brand in the background and your own audience that you've built, and to invite me on for this to take place in front of your audience is unfucking believable. And so you deserve, like, that deserves to be acknowledged. And so thank you for that. And to honor your wish, to close it out, number one is beware of the physical presence you're creating. Number two is beware of the physiological presence you're creating. Number three is get clear on what your intent is. What's your intent in this conversation? What's the intent of your listening? I encourage curiosity and understanding. Those work really well for me. Number four is to make sure you listen for the last three words. And number five is to listen courageously, meaning that you're risking the possibility of being influenced yourself. And when you do that, you truly create an open conversation. When I do that, I truly create an open conversation. And so those are the five guides to influential listening as I've come to define them.
Solid steps. I gave it a 3-second pause. See, I learned. Solid steps. I did it on purpose.
Awesome.
I appreciate it, man. Like, I love the open conversation that we have, like I said. So, but listen, I want anybody who's listening to this to be able to connect with you in any way, if they can. If you're cool with it, man, like, what's the best way that a listener can reach out to you? Because I know you've done a lot of amazing things with businesses that can go a lot deeper than even what we just did here, scratching the surface. Like, would you share maybe how these guys can get in touch with you if they want to? I know that you get booked out, like, pretty far in advance on different things and your different coaching and stuff like that. But can you just share a way that they can connect with you?
Well, yeah, I think the thing I would love most of all is, well, first of all, I'm always available, and you can just reach out through my website, which is ethicalinfluenceglobal.com. And what I'm trying to do with the website, and it's continuing to get better and better, but there's a lot of resources on there. Like, this podcast will ultimately be linked on there, as any other podcast that I'm on. My full-length keynote, I leave it on there for people to watch if they want to watch it. Like, it's the whole thing is on there. There's a lot of videos that I'm building. And then same with LinkedIn. Like, one of the commitments I have this year is to building an online presence worthy of kind of the work that we've been doing at Ethical Influence. And so I'm putting a lot more videos, little 3-minute videos out there for people, just to give more. And so there's no, there's no need for anything to come back this way. Like, we want this, we want to unlock a magical level of influence in already exceptional leaders. We want the world to be influenced by people who honor and serve the people that they influence. And so those are resources to just, if you want more of this, like, please dive in and just use what's there. It's free, and it's meant for people to take and share and learn from. And so that would be, the thing that would mean the most. Like, give us a follow on LinkedIn or Instagram, and then, go ahead and dive into the website. And then for certain, like, I'm always open. I've actually got some new stuff in the works that I think is going to open up some more offerings for people this year to get engaged with some leadership coaching and some leadership trainings. And so I'll be excited to announce those when I can officially announce them. But for now, I would just say I'm working on
Well,
them.
let me know when you can announce it so I can help you announce it.
And the other way that you could come and visit with me and meet with me and, possibly get the chance to be in the room for a session would be at Service Titan Pantheon, where I've had the privilege in the past to present, and I'll definitely be there representing our organization.
Well, I believe in you, man. That's why, like I said, I tell you, like, you try to sometimes be, you're humble. And in ways, I know we've had this conversation about the word humble before. So I eat my own words, but I like to be able to.
No, I love it. I love it. For what it's worth, thank you. I mean, that's
but
like,
you're not humble.
And the fact that I love being called humble so much is the surest sign I'm not humble, but yeah.
Well, touche. I like being able to put you out there because I believe so much in you and what you do for the human being. And so that's where I'm coming from. So I want to be helpful with putting that out there for people because I think it's healthy. I think it's good for them. So for our listeners. So that's where it comes from. But Keith has so many free tools. So we'll make sure that we tag everything on there to make it easy for you to find it. But tap into the resources. He's giving them to you. They're free and start there, and then you can go down the path. So Keith, man, I appreciate you so much. Thank you again for giving me an hour and a half of your time. You got about a 30-minute gap before you and I are then going to tackle a podcast with Bobby Hamilton. So that's going to be a fun one.
The most lovable person I've ever known.
Well, I can't wait to have that conversation with him. And don't tell him if you haven't told him yet. Don't tell him. If you already have, then damn you.
Oh no, I haven't. That's great. We'll surprise him. He'll love it. He loves surprises. He's a yellow. For those who know color code, he's a yellow. He likes fun.
I'm a yellow purist. Does that shock you with a little bit of red?
I love it. That's a wonderful leadership color code. So
perfect. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this thing up with a review like I normally do. And this one in particular is from Jose Mina, TX. Priceless education, TTP, to the point, is always pumping out great content and delivering every week, just like this episode you listened to. Not only do I always get nuggets, but it makes my drive time easy and entertaining. Thanks, Chris. Jose, thank you. Like, the most meaningful thing that you can do for me with this podcast is leave a review like that. So thank you, because that is its purpose. It serves its purpose. Anyone listening who would love to leave a review for Keith, I love being able to share specific reviews with any of the guests that have been on for an episode. So please do those things. I'd encourage you. But Keith, thank you again, my friend.
You're welcome, brother. And it was a treat. I really appreciate it.
And listeners, thank you. Obviously, he gives lots of stuff. He has his steps. I had my steps. My steps quickly diverted to back to Keith's steps. I had to learn what the word physiological meant. But listen, you don't have to do everything, but you got to do something. No 0 days. Listeners, thank you so much again for listening to this podcast week after week. We are extremely grateful. Again, the whole purpose of this podcast is to give back to the home services industry that we love so much, whether you're a RYNO or not. We really, really appreciate all the subscribers. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please go in and subscribe, and you'll get all the episodes sent to you automatically weekly. Also, we have really enjoyed your feedback. It's so meaningful for us when we get to read the nice comments that you guys put. So keep doing that. And if you don't know how to do it, here's what you got to do. You search for To The Point Home Services on Apple Podcasts. You click on our profile, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and hit write a review. And be honest and share your story and how the podcast has impacted you and your business. Thanks again from the bottom of our hearts at To The Point Home Services Podcast. We appreciate you.